Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Luis Tanco. I'm the IT Director of the Housing Authority City of Los Angeles. Today is March 30th, and we will be going through a pre-bid conference for the IT Sourcing RFP HA 2022-30. I want to talk about some key dates. The RFP was posted last Wednesday, March 23rd. Today is a pre-bid conference. The written questions are due April 5th, and the proposal itself is to be submitted April 29th. We will talk about some very important files during this presentation, one of which is the RFP package. I'm highlighting the name of the file here. Our contract administrator, Swam Lamb, and her contact information is part of this package. There's an introduction, general information about the proposal format and content, the proposal evaluation criteria and points, and contract award process and exhibits, a couple of which we'll be highlighting here. Our strong preference is to receive one proposal, but we understand this is a very comprehensive scope. Let's start with Exhibit A and the scope of services there. There are some scope files, one of which is the introduction. The introduction is very important, give you a sense of very high level, how many users we have, what type of computers we're running, what type of virtual desktops we're running. Also coupling HACLA and LOMA together to make sure that we get support for both entities. LA Loma, this is a small nonprofit that works in the headquarters here in our building. Second file talks about cross-functional services. These are all the overall encompassing services that we're looking for as part of the scope, which involve IDLE service practices, an IT strategy, project management office as part of this scope as well, as part of the services required to be able to take on all the initiatives that are part of the HACLA transformation. Third-party coordination, as we have multiple vendor contracts. The scope of work for service desk talks about workplace service requirements, the ability to get support from single point of contact, and later on we'll talk about first call resolutions, part of the metrics there on the performance schedule. Then there's the file for basic end user computing and field services. We have offices throughout Los Angeles that require desktop support. Also we have a main office downtown. This scope of work talks about support roles and responsibilities for PCs, mobile devices, cell phones, cameras, access systems, conference rooms, multifunction devices, self-service devices like kiosks. We also call your attention to the contract template and any requirements for prevailing wages for any low voltage type of system, and such as VoIP and cameras. Make sure that you are up to speed on the state requirements and federal requirements regarding supporting those type of systems as those relate to prevailing wages. The next file talks about support for applications that we have on-prem, hybrid, or as part of our SaaS subscription. Some core applications that are on-prem are being moved to the cloud. We anticipate those to be in the cloud before this engagement. We do also have some web portal applications that require support. For our enterprise computer, our server support, not just on-prem, but also cloud, such as Azure, if we move workloads over there. Something to note, we also require data center hosting. This is the leasing of space and all that is required for all of our 4 racks. I think we have 5. In the near future, we should have 5. We'll also talk about service continuity, disaster recovery in the scope of work. We also talk about our virtual desktop infrastructure, very critical. We have over 350 sessions for our work from home staff on any given day, very important part of our infrastructure. And web hosting, which will be scoped at a later time. We just want to make sure that that's included as part of the scope. And that's such that if we were to move websites or require hosting services, that we could discuss those on a project type basis under this contract, but scope separately. Next file talks about our network support. One extension is for our remote access and our telework staff. VPN support for them, as that is a need that it keeps growing. Our managed security document talks about our security program, a comprehensive security program that is required, multi-factor authentication, mobile device management, firewall management, vulnerability management. Our Schedule B talks about transition services as taking over the responsibilities and the timeline associated with that, potentially taking about 3 months or so to take over the services from the current contract to the new contract. Governance services talks about decisions, reports, escalations, change orders, anything of the sort, and how those would take place. Performance management is very important file because it talks about our service level requirements, talks about which ones are critical, how we rate different systems, the ability to calculate the SLRs under each one of these scope documents. You will find all the different SLR calculations in Schedule D. In Schedule E, exit services are the responsibilities for both parties in case of an early termination. And then for Schedule F, we talk about fee calculation methodology for base fees, adjustable support fees, application support, and project type of fees. Schedule G are definitions. For Annex 1, this is really where the response from the different proposals is to come in under Annex 1, response template. We also have one that is fillable. We have Annex 3, which is a matrix of reports and milestones that are sprinkled throughout different scopes, but gather into one matrix so that you can see what's going to be a recurring need, what's going to be a one-time need, and if it's a one-time need, when within the life of this engagement it will be delivered or will need to be delivered. And then references such as third-party contracts in our appendices and contract current architecture, including applications, devices, network devices, etc. Current performance reports, ongoing and future initiatives, and Appendix 5 is our IT policies. I want to call your attention to the documents that are relevant to Schedule B, which are a proposal. There are 2 Excel documents that are to be filled out. Both of them are to be filled out. One is the pricing response template, and then there's the other one, the pricing response template with transition tabs. One file is to include transition as part of the service fees. The other file is to call the transition costs separately in different tabs so that the service fees do not include costs for transition. We want to know what it would look like to pay transition costs up front and then service fees thereof, or to include the cost completely into just service fees. I want to make sure you provide us both views. Just wanted to give you an example with this slide. Let's say you were looking to understand our needs for the service desk. So I'm going to use that as an example. You will go to Schedule A2, look at our service desk scope of work. You would then look at relevant information from the appendices. Annex 3, reports and milestones, to see if there's anything that is relevant to Schedule A2 there for you to notice and to take in consideration as part of what's required. You would then go to Schedule D to look at the different service levels required for service desk. You will find those actually in section 3.4.1. And once you take all that in, then you provide your response in Annex 1, which is the template where you put in the plan that you have to meet the scope, any exceptions or any other information that is relevant to meeting the scope. And then you would go to Annex 2 of both files. You would put in the cost to support the devices and the different metrics that we put in those files for that scope. Hopefully this presentation gives you some sense of how these files come together. We did it a little bit in a summarized form such that you can review this video over and understand how all this comes together. There are going to be times for the submission of questions. We'll try to do our best to answer those when they do come in. And we'd like to thank you for your attention this afternoon. Thank you very much.